Hi, have you ever had any problems with either a leak coming off the top of your pillar valve, or when you've took it in for service, your cylinder's come back rusty, so they've had to scrap it and you've had to buy a new one? Well, if you have, grab yourself a brew, sit back and I'll show you how you can do some routine maintenance to solve all those problems happening. Hi, I'm Andy the Northern Diver and welcome to another episode in this series of scuba diving tutorials where I'll be helping you out, showing you how to do some routine maintenance to save yourself a fortune when you're looking after your cylinders. If this is your first time here, please consider hitting the subscribe button below. That way you can really easily see all the other content we've produced. At the side of that, you see there's a little bell icon. Clicking that, I'll give you a notification every time we post a new video. But if you haven't got a YouTube account, you won't be able to do this. So I've posted a link just up here to a video that I made, and it just takes you a couple of minutes to go and set up an account. That way you can like, comment and subscribe to any content you find on YouTube that you choose to. So we've had a couple of problems this week with my wife's kit having a leak coming off the top of the pillar valve. Where her first stage was screwed up. When she was on a dive, what you could see is like a little stream of bubbles coming out. So obviously after the dive we pulled the first stage off the cylinder and checked that the O-ring was still okay and intact. And it was. Also looking around the DIN adapter, that was fine, so it's never been dropped or banged, there was no cracks in it. Put it back on, went for another dive, it's still leaking. So we changed the O-ring, same problem. So like, well, there can't be much else, so I've done an inspection of the inside regulator. I've even tested it and it's meeting all the right parameters that it should do. It's not got any problems, it's had a recent service, it looks in really good condition. And we always keep these end caps on just to stop it getting smashed when it's thrown in the garage or in the back of the van or whatever. So when they're not fitted to a cylinder, they always have these end caps on. So what I did over the weekend is I had a look at what was going on and noticed that inside the threads they'd turned sort of like a manky green, and where the O-ring of the first stage would meet up and be pressed against the inside of the pillar valve wasn't quite as clean as it might be. So what I've got in my sort of dive kit toolbox was this brass brush. So it's not steel, so it's not going to scour the inside of this too much, but it is stiff enough to clean it out. So what I've done is just dry, I've got in there, worked away at those threads for just a minute, perhaps not even probably that long. Just got in there, literally pushed it in, turned it round so I can see that they're clean. I've then looked in the back of that and with perhaps a piece of tissue and maybe a fairy liquid in there, just got in there and worked that round. If there's any grease or any debris, I've pulled that out. I've then rinsed that with either a hose pipe or stick it under your hot tap or something like that, just for a second or two, making sure that it's turned off and there is some gas still in there. And when I've done that, I'll just go and pop it on the wall outside, just crack it open, let the pressure of the cylinder just blow out any moisture or debris that's still in there. And then got my first stage, mounted that back on, and sure enough there's no leak. Now to test that, what I've got is just a little jug of soapy water, so a little bit of like washing up liquid and a bit of water, and just poured that on, opened the gas up and watched, and you'd either see bubbles being created or nothing at all. Fortunately for me, that worked, so that cleaned everything up, and it's just a bit of debris that's over the last couple of years just built up in there. So my advice to you would be, after every diving day and you bring your kit home, obviously clean off your regulators and sanitize them as much as you need to. There's a video up here that I made a few months ago, shows you how to do that. But I implore you to clean your cylinder just with a bit of fresh water. It doesn't take much just to rinse that out. Then get a clean cloth, a bit of tissue, just get in there in case it's a bit greasy for whatever reason and any debris caught in there. And then if you've not got one already, buy yourself one, just a couple of £1 off Amazon or in your dive shops. Screw that up, and what that does, certainly for me where it's in my garage and it's quite dusty, or if it's in the back of the van, stops any damage to the top of the pillar valve, just get one of these little bungs, do that up nice and tight, and it just stops any dust, debris, moisture gathering in there. To add to that, every time you take your cylinder to test, they take the pillar valve off and look inside, and you can see this one, it's just an ornament on one of my shelves now. It is all rusty inside it, and the reason for that is the moisture that does build up in the pillar valve when it goes to filling. As the guy puts the filler neck on, he's not going to make sure there's no moisture in there, so you need to. So before you take it, without the bung fitted, just crack it, let that moisture blow out, and then when he fills it up, it'll be fine. But this one has actually failed the test because the amount of moisture that's built up over time in there has been detrimental to this, and it's got all rusty. So hopefully you can see just how bad it is. The last thing I think about on your cylinders is, and if you've got a rubber boot on the bottom, what's going to happen is when you're diving on beaches and sort of dirty areas, you can get sand building up in your boot or scratching the paintwork of the bottom of the cylinder that's not protected by the boot. So it's really important that you keep the sort of scouring effect of, you know, where you're putting your cylinders down to a bare minimum, so you're not removing the paintwork and protection that's on that cylinder. So if you've got a boot and you can get it off, take it off perhaps once a month, or maybe even more regular if you're on a beach every day. Swill it off, just clean it down, dry it off and put your boot back on. That way, as you drop in your cylinder all the time and that boot's got some sand and grit in it, it's not being pushed against the paintwork and constantly just working away at that paint, because what will happen is it'll just go rusty because it is just steel. So by keeping your cylinder clean and dry when it's outside the water, you just prolong its life. So every time you take it in for a test, you're not likely to get any sort of damage problems or bigger bills like it's scrapped and you have to buy a new one. So fingers crossed this has been of some use to you. If it has, please give us a massive thumbs up at the bottom. And if you've got any comments or questions or whatever, put them in the comments box and I'll be sure to get back to you straight away. Thanks for watching. See you on the next one. See you on Insta.